So for the first time in a full year, I re-downloaded social media. And to be quite frank, it made me sad. You see, on social media, it's like you have this web of people that are surrounding you, right? And when you look at these people, they seem quite close, right? They seem like they're within proximity to you. So you reach out an arm, okay, but they're always just out of your reach, okay? Yeah, but they still feel so close. So what do? You try to take a step towards them. And then what happens is you look down and you see that there is actually a canyon between you. Because these people seem so close, but they're actually so far away. And this is kind of reflected in the world where, everyone is physically compressed and close, like sardines in a tin, cities packed full of people were building to the skies just so to wedge everyone in, to fit everyone in. And we've never been physically closer than ever. Yet we've never been more spiritually distant from one another. And that's the point of today's podcast, is kind of like the importance of that and how social media has kind of caused that, and how when, we're in a world of towers and canyons in between them, it's vital that we should build bridges, fundamentally. Because here's the thing, right? If you look at ancient Rome, before they wanted to, take a Celtic tribe or this nation, this country, what would they always do? They would always divide them, set them against each other, highlight their differences. Because fundamentally, the fragmented whole is inherently weaker than the whole, right? So the more divided we are, the more we're set against one another, the weaker we become. And the sadder we become. Because here's the thing, right? When we zoom out and look at the grander scheme of things, our proximity to the other is going to decide the fate of the world. I mean, that is the tale as old as man and older. That it is our division and overcoming said division that is essentially the only thing stopping us from turning this world into heaven. And that's the very truth of it. And it's within these differences and these, these religions, these doctrines, these philosophies, these gender, these so on and so forth. You can go on. That there's so much to divide us in the modern day. It's these separations, these canyons are between us that are the biggest obstacle in turning this earth to heaven. So it's paramount that we build bridges over them, and we build bridges in a world of trenches. So, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I'd like to do a little personal update before we get into these things. And the diligent of you might have noticed I actually dropped a video right before this podcast. I mean, lucky you, mate. You're not just getting a podcast, you're getting a video in a week as well. And this video was it was necessary context for this podcast, because I've started implementing a protocol which kind of segments building the foundations of manhood into sections. And watch the video if you haven't already. It will go in more depth. But the general consensus is this, right? So I call it the growth of the Trinity, the Trinity of growth. So you have sun, which is your purpose, your path, your provision, and your soil, which is your vitality, your vigor, and your virility, and spring, so your fraternity, feminine, and family. So by segmenting life into these compartments, it's easier to manage. And so I just have a game plan of each, and then that's how I kind of move forward in life. And once I've mastered all three of these or reached a very high level, then we can start going on to things like spirituality and philosophy. I mean, I love to philosophize. I could do it all day. But fundamentally, the thing is, you need to build the foundations before you build the house, right? And, it's paramount to, what did our Lord and Savior teach us, right? We need to build on stone, not sand. And I'm currently building that stone foundation. So with that in mind, with the personal update, I'll just structure it within the parameters of these compartments, these aforementioned compartments. So in terms of the sun, my purpose, my path, my provision, I actually acquired a full-time job, which is great. My first time doing a proper full-time job that's not like, sort of like bar work or, hospitality sort of thing. So that's great. I've created a demanding schedule. I've got up at like 4:30 every day. That's my kind of game plan. I wake up super early. I work on this, before the sun's even come up. graft hard, and then use my best mental hours for this work, and then I'll go to work super hard there as well. And then, yeah, that's the kind of game plan. Like, I'll meal prep on Sunday, all my meals for the week. And yeah, that's lock the fuck in, basically, is the game plan on that front. So start on that next week. So I imagine, depending on how productive that this week is, I'll either let you know how that goes next podcast or the podcast after. We'll see. And then soil wise, as always, well, actually, no, you boys don't know this, but I suffered a lot with chronic ailments, particularly gut health. So primarily working on that. I've just got a protocol catered to leaky gut at the minute. So I'm just sticking to that protocol, staying disciplined with my food. I'm not eating any not cheating on my diet and eating any trigger foods, none of that. And also I've got a new training program, which means I'm bringing deadlifts back into my training program, and just dialing in a bit of weightlifting and just going from 2 times a week to 3 times a week. And it's kind of like 3 full body sessions, but one's a bit more like hamstrings and deadlifts, and the other 2 do squats and bench. So we're going to try that out as well. And spring. So boys, I know I literally said in the first episode, right, I was like, I'm deleting dating apps, that's it, and I said it. But the thing is, right, fundamentally, I live in the middle of nowhere. I live in like a village in the middle of nowhere in a little cottage, right? Hence the scenic backdrop, right? So meeting women is very difficult. I'm not going to lie. It is very difficult. And I kind of said this in my last video, but you can't just wait for miracles to happen. You have to make them happen themselves. And I'd rather have like an open channel via dating apps. Like, I set up a good profile, and then my kind of game plan is literally just to reply to them like once a day, and then, or maybe once every 2 days, and just have an open channel to see if something trickles through, have an influx of dates, and keep myself on the dating market sort of thing. But it's difficult to navigate. I'm not gonna. I've had a lot of difficulty because the thing is, it is inherently satanic software. Dating apps, like, mate, you can literally just get a ping like that's like dopaminergically engineered to like tickle your pickle, right? And that ding literally signals in your brain that means a female is validating you. I mean, how fucking addicting is that? Oh, mate, I'm struggling so much. So my current solution is just dopamine. Like, I'm dopamine fasting. So I literally have to do all the work. I can't even look at my phone before all the work is done. Then once all the work's done, we can talk about it. And because I found like you can't negotiate with this satanic software. It will just shaft you, mate. You can't negotiate with it. You have to fast from it, right? Because it's kind of like, if you just go on it once, you'll like break the dopamine seal, so to speak. So, and it's like when you're drinking, obviously you get a few beers down you. As soon as you piss once, you're just pissing all night. So it's the same with this. If you break the seal once, you're just on it all day, these dating apps. So it's difficult, but if I can build a system which can incorporate this into my working day, and it doesn't actually, get in the way of too much, I mean, fucking hell. Like, that is strength right there. Because it's one of the most dopaminergic things I've had to deal with as a young man. So it's difficult. And also alongside that, like I said, I'm working on my foundations. My main focus with women is a long-term one, right? It is becoming worthy of the woman who I want to marry, fundamentally. Obviously, as I'm sure you do as well, want a virtuous, beautiful, God-fearing lady. But she needs to be earned. Do you know what I mean? And she isn't earned by potential. She's earned by action and responsibility and outcome. So that's what we're currently make happen. So yeah, that's my sun, soil, my spring. And you boys in the comment section, just in that format, sun, soil, spring. If you fancy, just also let me know how your week went and where your kind of goals are, and I'll reply to all of them as well. But anyway, back to the main body of things, right? So here's the thing with social media. Another observation I noticed, right, is that it scratches the itch, but the ache remains. And of course, I'm talking about socially. You can be the most social creature on social media, right? Which is quite, because if you look into the etymology of social media, what does that mean? Social, obviously, media essentially came from the word medium, which basically means something in between. So it's kind of like a medium in between you and socializing. If you wanted to go that route, that's just kind of off the top of my head, but like, it's interesting how kind of all this symbology is just like straight in front of your face, right? But yeah, it kind of just does, like, it fulfills materially but not spiritually. So like on paper, yeah, you're speaking to another person. On paper, yeah, you're telling a joke with another person. On paper, you're doing all these things, you're interacting with other people. But spiritually, it doesn't nourish you. It satiates you, but it doesn't nourish you. It's sort of like processed food in a way. And it's all kind of like a satanic inversion of the real thing. This world is a satanic inversion, right? But this is why you can kind of use this example for anything like porn, like processed food. Where processed food is like you get bread in the supermarket now, but that's not actually bread. Like it's if you talk about bread in the Bible, for example, that was better. That was from better grain. That was stone ground and had more nutrients. Didn't have a ton of additives. More than likely was sourdough as well, and so it was a completely different thing. So there's kind of a spectrum to everything, and obviously, like the bread in the supermarket is just like trash, absolute trash, full of seed oils, emulsifiers, additives, so on and so forth. And the actual wheat itself is crap, and it's fortified, and it's just terrible. But then bread back in the day was genuinely a health, like by modern day standards, a superfood. So that's the thing, and that's kind of like bread is a satanic inversion of what bread used to be. I mean, that's the title right there, right? Bread a satanic inversion. But yeah, that's what it is. It's just like it's just enough to scratch the itch to kind of stop you from going out and seeking the actual thing and actually socializing with people. But it's not enough to like fulfill your soul. And because when everything goes quiet, your soul still aches for that human connection which you so desperately want but never get. And it kind of reminds me of when I was a kid, because as a kid, you'd see all these hench guys on the TV screen or whatever, or like the guys with the six pack. I was like, I want a six pack so badly. And I was kind of thinking, but I also love donuts and sweets and chocolate. So my obviously incredibly intelligent brain, it's sort of like that. What was his name? Like Beethoven was playing piano at age 6. This is what I was doing at age 6, mate. Similar level. So I came to this conclusion, right? So food, I can't eat it, right? Because when I eat it, it makes me fat, but I want to eat it. So what do? Okay, so I take a bite of the donut, I chew it. Before I swallow it, I spit it out. So therefore, I don't actually have to swallow it, and I don't get the caloric intake, but I get the satisfaction. So I thought until I experimented with it, and then I realised, you get the taste, but you don't get the satisfaction. And fundamentally, the satisfaction is what you're after. The taste is just fleeting and it's teasing almost. So I came to that conclusion, and yeah, I didn't get the six pack I wanted, unfortunately. But yeah, and that kind of is a great metaphor for social media. It gives you the taste, but not the satisfaction, right? That your soul yearns for in the modern day. And another thing I noticed is that social media predates on the emotion of FOMO. In fact, it predates it on a lot of, like, say, lesser human nature. But this FOMO is what stood out. I mean, if you think like on an anthropological basis, right, FOMO has a lot of utility. If you think, why would someone get a FOMO, like a fear of missing out? Well, it will be because if you're not included within, a tribe, then that's a bad thing. Because if you're not getting included in the tribe and you're not being useful and social and stuff, then people might not start to like you, and they might be deliberately excluding you. And what lies at the end of that path is actually getting excommunicated from the tribe, which would most certainly mean death, right? Because the lone wolf always dies fundamentally. And this is especially true of women as well, because obviously with men, you could potentially, like Leonardo DiCaprio, kill a couple bears and just go across America, whatever. Like you could do that, right? There's a small chance, but with women, you'd be fucked, right? You would be fucked. So that's especially true of women. So women are even more biased towards the in-group, so to speak, and have this in an amplified manner to men, according to my observations anyway. So that's the thing. FOMO back in the day, it would have motivated us to be nicer to people, right? To be maybe a little bit more agreeable, to be helpful, to work harder, to go hunting, and to bring stuff and contribute to the tribe. But now, FOMO within the context of social media, all it does is incentivize stunting and signaling, essentially, and it just amplifies that so much, and that's what you get rewarded for, and this emotion kind of drives you to just create a facade, a false portfolio, a pseudo portfolio of yourself, or yourself as you want other people to see. And it's It's very sad, really. So, and of course, boys, I've talked about cardboard cutout society, cardboard cutout people. I've mentioned that in previous podcasts. People living to supplement their frontal image, but you forget about it until you get back in the satanic arena of social media. And then I'm kind of scrolling through. I'm like, fucking hell, these guys are having the best time in the world. It's like everyone's competing about who can go to the most exotic place, and who can look like they're having the best time, and everyone wants to not be missing out, right? And it's just like this competition which everyone's engaging in. But like, honestly, when you meet a lot of these people in real life, the sad reality is, and like, I'm not saying this as in like, in a judgmental sense, but you can kind of tell they aren't happy. This is just most people, to be honest. And most people you can kind of just tell aren't happy. Meanwhile, it's like they've spent all their colour on supplementing this frontal image, but it's really sad actually, because they're inherently good people, and it's just people are very misguided in modern day. And I'm not saying I know the whole truth and everything, but it's just sad. It is very sad. So social media just kind of reduces life and all its beauty and nuance into simply just a status competition, right? Almost like a status scoreboard, if you will. And it's who has the most followers, who's been to the most exotic places, who has the best body, who's got the best friendship circle, who knows the most famous people, and etc., etc., etc. And it's very dehumanizing, as with all of these things. And it's it's very sad, and it's very empty, and it's very hollow, and it kind of creates a thing where it's like everyone is fighting to be on stage. Like, imagine a concert, right? And the whole crowd are just wrestling to be on stage, but no one really knows why, because the people on the stage aren't happy, the people fighting to be on the stage aren't happy, but everyone's just doing it anyway. It's a very weird behavior, isn't it? Another difficult thing that is important to note is that, like, it's not a case in the anthropological sense, in the primal sense, where you're just competing against a tribe. You probably have about, I don't know, say a dozen people your age, a dozen young lads your age, and you're competing against them. No. You are competing against billions and billions of people, right? Billions of people. So that means you can never really win. When it's a case of 12 lads, you can be the strongest. You can be the best hunter. You can get the prettiest tribe lady. But when it's a case of billions of people, there's always going to be a bigger fish. There's always is going to be a bigger fish. And so it kind of creates a narcissist out of everyone. And it's this like perfect ecosystem for narcissists, who are the definition of a cardboard cutout person, like someone who's deeply insecure and cares about other people's opinions so much that they will go to drastic lengths to prove it. And like for example, people like celebrate like Michael Jordan, for example, basketball player. Admittedly, I don't know much about him. I've just heard people like, eulogize him and speak about, literally just pure narcissistic behavior as if it's some like divine trait. Like, if, for example, like if someone was talking trash about him, apparently he would like go and literally visit them to prove them wrong, and like train and like destroy them just to prove them wrong, when it's just some random bum. And which is just prime narcissistic behavior, where they need everyone to worship them, and they will go to like any length for that to happen. And it's the perfect ecosystem for narcissists, social media, and it will make narcissists of us all, because we're all slowly just becoming that person where we care about what everyone else thinks, and we need people to follow us, and we need to be in the in-group so much, and it's just really, really sad. And I think it will make narcissists of us all, if we're not careful, that is, if we're not careful. But yeah, I mean, people might say on social media is that, like, a lot of this is kind of as a consequence of men being competitive, right? And I agree. But the thing is, it's not just men who are competitive. Women are also very, very competitive. But the thing is, they do it subtly. You see, men are overt competitors, right? They're like lions, right? They'll go up and see another lion and they will fight. And they'll think, me, you, we are competing right here, right now. But women aren't like that, okay? Women are overt competitors. They will subtly do things like, say, for example, in a female friendship group, a beautiful blonde lady with flowing locks. She says one day she's seen some feminist posts about something. She says, you know what I want to do? I want to shave my head, right? And get like leopard print dyed on my head. All her friends, right? Objectively so, this is just going to make her ugly. Objectively so. But all her friends, what do they say? Do they say, no, I don't think you should? You say, oh my God, girl, you would slay with that haircut. I don't know why I'm American, but they do. Women will do this, right? They will subconsciously sabotage each other because they are subconsciously covertly competing with one another. And let me tell you about another example for this, which is related to social media. We all know that girl who is less than blessed by God when it comes to looks, right, and perhaps weight as well, right? But when she posts on social media, you see in her comment section, this woman is like other girls commenting, this woman is the most beautiful girl I've ever seen in my life. Oh my God, slay queen. Oh my God, my jaw just dropped. Like, this is what you'll see in the comment section. Men, we're like scratching our head, like, because obviously if our boy posts, we're like, the most we'll comment is, that looks gay, mate. Like, so we're scratching our head, like, what's going on here? And let me tell you the reason why that happens, right? Or at least, bear in mind, this is all subconscious, right? It's not a bad thing. In fact, it's a beneficial thing insofar as a survival mechanism is. But the reason women do this is because, as above, so below. If I can raise your ego and your self-view and your self-esteem by complimenting you, that gives me a power over you. Because if I have given you an inflated ego, guess what I can also do to you? Via the method of insulting you, I can then reduce your ego, right? As above, so below. If I can increase your ego by complimenting, I can reduce it by insulting you, right? Okay, and it gives me power over you. So this is why women compliment each other so much, because then when shit hits the fan and they're arguing and anything, they can then tear each other down. They have saved ammunition for the winter. They save food for the winter. So that is why they do it. And this is another important thing, is obviously they don't just do this for women, they do it for men as well. It's a very smart tactic, and well, it's intuitive, it's subconscious, it's not negative. I just want to reiterate that. But yes, this is why, gentlemen, you cannot take a woman's compliments or insults to and you can't take them inside you, because if a woman compliments you, you should already know who you are as your man and where you stand. If you're handsome, if you're tall, if you're a good speaker, whatever it is she's complimenting you on, you should already know. So you're like, oh yeah, thanks, I know. And like, it doesn't boost your ego because you already know that, right? You're already solid in your worldview. This is what humility is, as we've discussed. It's recognizing your strengths and your weaknesses and accepting them for what they are. That's what humility is. So therefore, if she also comments on one of your weaknesses and tries to insult you for it, you also say, yes, I know. And she cannot, you're like a concrete block. She just can't move you, right? She can't raise you up with compliments, and she can't raise you down with insults, okay? So that is why fundamentally you want to be kind of unmoved. So if a woman compliments you, don't take it to your heart too much, or you shouldn't anyway, right? You shouldn't. Of course, obviously you're going to get a bit excited and go, ooh, but don't, because if she can do that to you, she can, as above, so below, she can also tear you down. So that's just a couple kind of methods women will use to subconsciously, covertly compete with one another. And of course, you can kind of, like I said, you can see that all over social media as well, with them gassing up each other and so on and so forth. So it's very much a playground which both sexes play the game, but just some are more obvious at it than others. But I just wanted to bring us back to what I was saying earlier about the kind of building each other up. We've kind of, but there's caverns in between us, because that's kind of what social media is. It's not a collective thing. It's very much an individual thing. Like, I'm building my personal brand. I'm building my following, and it's kind of like building yourself up, right? And the thing is, it's kind of like, when one observes this, I can't help but think of, right, it's kind of like the Towers of Babel, right? And you're thinking the path to the divine is up there. Even on a subconscious level, I appreciate a lot of people are atheists, but why would someone build up, right? Because subconsciously they're thinking they are ascending, right? Even if they don't consciously think that's in a spiritual sense, like, where is the end destination of anything? If you know things about the world, you know it's like you want to be close to God, right? So these people are subconsciously building up to get to close to God. But in reality, the situation, like I said, it's just making the cavernous canyon in between us, the trench in between us, ever deeper the further up we build. So what I actually think in reality we need to do is stop building up so much, as we all do, but actually just build bridges in between each other and actually connect with one another. It's like, for example, why our world is so obsessed with space and exploring the beyond, right? Exploring, what is in the stars. And to be honest, I don't think that there's really much point in doing that. It's a case of like I said, it's just building up. trying to go up because thinking that's the direction. Like I said, I think it's subconsciously people trying to get closer to God, but that's just my opinion, right? Let me tell you something which may well surprise you, right? The closest thing you're going to get to God in this realm, what would you say it is? Would you say it's like, maybe like a really kingly person? Do you think it's a case of like it's a vision? Do you think it's a case of like, I don't know, like an angel appearing to you? Do you think it's the second coming of Christ? What do you think it like actually is? Well, I'll tell you right now, it's literally just the other. Literally just, it could be, your neighbor next door. It could be your gravest enemy. It could be the gentleman you pass in the street. That is the closest thing we can experience to God in this realm is the other person. So that's kind of my grander point, is that the way we ascend is not building up towers of Babel or going to the stars, but actually just building bridges to one another. Because that truly is the closest thing we're going to get to divine in this realm. But also, I know I went on a bit of a tangent about satanic inversions earlier, but there is another one, right? And this one is the algorithm. Now, I'll go into more detail in a later podcast, and some of you listeners might know what I'm talking about. But we live in a mirror world, essentially, right? A world which is essentially just a reflection of the collective consciousness. So, in simple terms, if you like added up everyone's consciousness and who everyone is, their very being, and subconscious, unconscious, conscious, whatever, added it all together, right, and then kind of made it into a world, it will be this very world right here. I mean, that is an absolute bombshell if you've not heard it before, and I will go into more detail of it, but it kind of makes you think, right? It's not the outgroup or the enemy that's the reason for this world, but it's all of us, right? It's every single person. So this is why I kind of say is that evil cannot be defeated by the top down. It's not a governmental thing. It's not an archetypal king who necessarily comes through in of itself. Of course, that's important, but it's not like some party that's going to come into power or some coup or some dictatorship, whatever. It's simply from the inside out. And, if we all fixed our problems and all became better people, the world would reflect to be a better place. It's that simple. It's why I try and preach like an individual message, right? I'm not telling you to rage against the establishments or against certain groups or religions or races. My message is very much work on yourself and improve yourself and connect to others. And that's why my message is that way. And also, it means your belief systems in which you input into this world will be reflected back to you, because this world fundamentally, it wants to make it difficult for you to reach the truth. This is why you can have two people who are both 140 IQ geniuses, right? But they'll have completely different perspectives on the world, because fundamentally this world will prove your biases. So this is why you have to be very careful, and you have to avoid dogmatic ideologies. But with that in mind, what does that kind of remind you of? An algorithm, right? Like, who knows what the algorithm is based on, if it's just liking, if it's just the amount you look at a post. Maybe they even look through your camera and see where you're looking on the screen. But fundamentally, we all know the almost creepy power an algorithm has in predicting your exact thoughts, right? And this is very powerful in that it pigeonholes your beliefs. I mean, for example, if you have 1,000 people and they all pick an option A, B, C, and D, and then say one picks B, and then behind B there's another A, B, C, and D. And even if they had, say, like 5 of those choices in a row, I mean, they would probably all be so separated and end up in different places that, it would be unfathomable, right? And this is kind of what the internet is kind of, you become, I mean, obviously having an interest is okay, but your interests become so niche, right? And so dialed in, and you have so many of these choices back to back that you become so separate from everyone else. Because I kind of know, obviously been on the internet a while, and I've gone to some dark, dingy corners of the internet, right? And, you find some information on there. If you were to try and relay it to, like, say, your average person, like I said, your neighbor or the gentleman passing you in the street, you would probably be institutionalized. So it kind of, obviously that's a very dangerous thing, right? Because that has the potential to make us a lot more tribalistic, and that has the potential to make more fragments of the whole, right? more tribalistic, which is exactly what we need in the modern day, right? But like, why is this bad, right? Because fundamentally, we all come from the same source, right? If you look at all spiritual texts, we all come from God. If you look at all religious texts, we all come from God, fundamentally. Obviously, that's a generalization. And you can see this across all walks of life, because I kind of had a saying, which I don't, well, actually, I don't say much, actually made up for the script, but there is no such thing as solo joy. There is no such thing as solo joy. Like, I want you to imagine, when's the last time you got some good news? I hope for your sake it was very, recent. Like, for example, me, I got this job, right? I got the call getting my job. What did I do? Did I just go, yes, and then move on with my day? No, I wanted to tell people. I wanted to call my parents. I wanted to share the joy. Because I want you to imagine, like, say, you receiving that good news. I don't know, maybe you got a reply on Tinder or Grindr. I don't know who's watching this. Whatever it is, what do you want to do? You want to share it with people, If good things happen, you want to share it. Like, a great analogy for this is in football, right? Say, for example, you score a goal in football and you celebrate. What do? You celebrate together. And, like, the better the goal or more dramatic it is, the closer you get. Like, for example, I watched a video yesterday of, like, a goalkeeper scoring in the last minute, which is, like, unheard of in football, right? He goes up for the goal and he scores it, and literally everyone, like, piles on top of him. And this is just it's a really interesting thing, because if you observe why that subconsciously is because everyone wants to be as close to each other as possible. And, like, obviously when we're happy, we hug and maybe even kiss each other. And why do we do that? I mean, that's a weird behavior. Why do we do that? Because fundamentally, we all come from the same source, and we are all one, and we've been put into these bodies, right? And given an ego. Well, fundamentally, we can talk about why that is, right? But we don't really need to in this podcast. All we need to understand is the kind of the fact that we all come from the same source, and, like, the greatest sensations you can actually get in this realm are literally from connection to the other person. Like, think of if you have, like, really good sex, for example. Why does that feel so good? It's because you're literally so close. It's one of the most intimate things you can possibly do with another person. That's why it feels so good. You think of laughing with the boys. It's you experiencing shared joy. Like, you can't laugh by yourself. Well, I mean, I do, but I'm autistic, so ignore that. There's nothing better than, like, laughing with the boys just until you're crying. That's, like, one of the best feelings in this world, So this is why we want to be as close to people as possible. And fundamentally, algorithmically pigeonholing yourself has the potential to divide us a lot more. But of course, there's also other factors to that. There's got to be a positive to the negative, right? And the positive is, by, like, niching down so much, you can find your people, right? Because you actually find your interests first and foremost, which are, like, very, very niche. Like, you probably would have never found it back in the day. Like, the dusty library on your corner, pouring through, thousands of pages of text. You're never going to find, like, the, an autistic meme on, like, I'm not going to say because it's probably going to be too offensive. But you see my point. Like, the level of autistic detail which you find your enthusiasm picked up by algorithms leading you to, is just, like, somewhere so niche you can never find it before. But then you can also find other people there. And so guess what that means? That means you are more than likely going to get along with those people. So that's why one thing I think it's important to kind of cast your voice into the abyss in social media. You speak openly, like, your opinions and what you think, your interests, and be authentic with it. Because then you can actually find people who align with you a lot, right? Because the reality is, a lot of our friends are kind of out of convenience, right? We go to the same places. Maybe we have one or two of the same interests. Maybe we've got one or two of the same goals or whatever. But fundamentally, a lot of it's, like, geographical, right? It's because you live there and I live here, right? That's the reality of the situation. But social media has kind of undercutted that, right? Now it's like you can meet with the people who you align with most, even if they're on the other side of the globe. And that's quite a beautiful thing. So there is two sides to that story, right? Obviously, there is the potential of division and further tribalism. There's also the case of you connecting with people you're more aligned to. So you want to boost the latter and mitigate the former. So, gentlemen, I wanted to kind of bring it to an antidote sort of thing. So how can we navigate social media and the world at large to build more bridges and have less trenches. Essentially become more united and less divided. And well, there's one solution first and foremost on the social media front. You may look at the social media and see all the potential negatives and all the upsides and think, you know what, I don't want any of it, and not play the game of social media, just non-participation and just say no, I don't really want to. And that is a valuable option. Like, I've done it before and just going off grid, so to speak. And you can do that, right? But my problem with it is because social media, as big as a downside it has, you got to appreciate as above, so below. So it also has a massive potential for good if you can kind of find a way to use it, right? Sort of like systemize it, like I'm trying to do with the dating apps, for example, and find a way to be a candle in the dark night, which is also what I'm trying to do here. So that's kind of one thing which I think you are kind of missing out on. So I don't really think non-participation is the best course of action, in my humble opinion, right? And another factor is, like, I'll do a whole podcast on this, right? But we are in the midst of an information war as we speak. The public is given access to the libraries of Alexandria times 100, right? And I think that's starting to bear fruit now, to be honest. Having been off social media and then back on it a year later, you can see, in my opinion, like the collective consensus is heading towards truth, right? More people are finding out about, like, the poison in food, for example. I've noticed that. And like I said, we live in a mirror world. A lot of supermarkets don't necessarily stock their food full of poison because they're evil and hate everybody. It's just because that's what people buy and that's what's cheapest, and people don't know better. But people who are starting to know better, so the produce on the shelves is actually starting to get better and start to get less ingredients. There's more ranges which are healthier and organic, and there's more options for those of us who want to eat healthy without all the crap in our diets, because we are learning more as a collective and there's demand for it, right? So if we're a bunch of people who all demand healthy food and want to eat food who aren't going to buy McDonald's will go out of business tomorrow. The information war is potentially, in my opinion, obviously I know we're in like the age of Aquarius now, I think that could be one of the biggest themes we see in the next 100 years or so, which is why censorship and these things are so important. They're of pivotal importance. So that's why you kind of maybe want to be, I know I said build bridges in a world of trenches, but the trenches already do exist. Might be a good idea to get in them in an informative sense and kind of speak boldly your opinion and fight for the side of truth on the internet. I think that's a valiant cause. I think you really should express yourself instead of suppressing yourself. And to be honest, this has actually benefited me quite a lot, right? Say even with this podcast, even though I've only been doing it for a short amount of time, I'm in a couple online communities, like one for spirituality, shout out the boys from Kaleidoscope, and one from more like health-based thing, shout out the boys from Crusade Games. I don't know if there's any who watch this actually, but shout out those boys anyway. And you can join these communities and you find so many people who you just get along with, who are actually just really nice people, really align with them. And they're just sound people, to be honest, mate. They're just your type of people, And I think that's a very powerful thing. And it doesn't have to just be online. Like, for example, with the boys from Crusade Games, I decided to just take initiative. I was like, you know what? There's a fair few of us in the UK, boys. I'll host a UK meetup. And I think in a couple of months we're doing that. And we're literally just going to meet up, climb a mountain, do some sparring on a mountain. It'll be good fun. And then we'll come back and just have a bunch of protein and just have some good conversations. And yeah, we're literally just going to have a meetup like that. And you can literally just do that. And it's a bunch of guys who are like-minded. Like, there's some fucking MMA fighters. There's some guys who are starting their own content stuff. And it's really cool, man. And you can just meet people like that. And see, there is a big upside to it. So speak your opinion boldly in social media. Join communities that are aligned with you. They're a very worthy investment purely for the networking, let alone the actual benefit of the community, right? And then, be proactive and take initiative. And, you can actually make some really, really good friends from it. So it's an extremely powerful, like, networking tool in the sense of, like, meeting aligned people, not necessarily just making loads of profit and business, but just meeting your people, And obviously, I know you might be a bit worried about, like, what about haters and stuff, because if you're speaking openly and whatever, and I'm not saying you have to start a personal brand, but just, if I can tweet, what you think, that's what I do. If you ever have like a coherent thought, once in every 1,000 thoughts, just write it down and tweet it out. And maybe someone will start to notice, maybe not. To be honest, I just do it not because I want to grow on Twitter necessarily, or that would be good. It's just because it's just a habit at this point, and I find it handy to, like, structure my thoughts because it develops them clearer. So yeah, you just start doing that. You start meeting some people, be proactive, reach out to people, you know, and yeah, you can make some cool things happen. Like I said, you know, if you live in a rural village, your best friend isn't just going to walk, your future best friend isn't just going to walk down the street and knock on your door, say, can we be best friends, please? No, you got to go out and find him. And that social media is a fantastic tool for that, you know? And sorry, like I said, I touched upon haters as well. Like recently, like my last podcast, I made a couple shorts. They were just like AI generated. They were pretty trash quality, to be honest. But I just put them on, and like the thing is, the exposure you get is so good. Like I think I literally just got like a few thousand views just from then, compared to like 16 from a podcast. Right now, I have this kind of idea called the content pyramid, which I'll describe at a later date. But the kind of idea is, the lower you go down the content pyramid, the more generic the content is, and less intellectual and less esoteric. The lower down the pyramid you go, the bigger the base. So the bigger the base of people, and also the less high up in sense of like spiritual advancement or intellectual advancement these people will be. Algorithmically, you're not going to be finding maybe the audience which you really, really want. There is going to be like a kind of subcast of quite hateful people, and that's something you got to deal with. Like, for example, I got called a sub 5 in one of them, which hurt deeply. But yeah, so the way to deal with haters is, well, what is the antidote to them, right? Okay, so they are single-minded and hateful, so you have to be loving and diplomatic. Simple, right? The antidote is diplomacy and love. That's it. If you just reply to that, you disarm them, because they wanted a reaction out of you. They wanted a reaction out of you, which kind of, just give them a bit of stimulation, or maybe just justify their own victim complex. But if you just turn the other cheek and give them diplomacy and love, most of the time they don't reply. But sometimes they actually just break the facade and say, oh yeah, you know what? Sorry, man. That's how you deal with haters. That is the antidote to haters. Just a little tip, right? And obviously don't get affected by it. Try to ignore it. Don't even look at it, because like, obviously, you can say you're secure and all this, but if you have 1,000 people calling you a sub 5 a day, that's going to hurt your feelings. That's going to get to you, So you just want to try and avoid that. But yeah. I mean, it's always a risk, but there's nothing worth having in the world that there isn't a big trade-off for. That's just the game we play, mate. Don't hate me, hate the game. You know what I mean? Don't hate the player. Yeah, man. And also you can go down the route of even like building a community, which is what I'm going to do, where it's kind of like, instead of just, everyone building these individual towers of Babel, you build a cathedral together. You see what I'm saying? It's not everyone building their own towers segregated with canyons in between. It's a community building something beautiful together. So that's kind of what I'm doing. And why not try it yourself too? Why not, man? I think the more of them, the better, So that's something you could try as well. And I think that's very much the future as well, which is why, like, say, Alex Hormozy and Sam Ovens, which you might know from YouTube, like business YouTubers, love them or hate them, fundamentally, they're very smart guys. And, like, they've gone all in on Skool, which is like a SKOOLL, which is fun, which is like a community-based app, which you can kind of, which content creators can monetize off. And there's a reason they've done that, because I think it's very much the future, and I would not be surprised. And yeah, man, I think it's a big market. But yeah, with these communities, obviously, there's different types of communities, and to generalize a lot, there's communities that are built of like an in-group of love, or a community that's built out of a shared hate for an out-group, right? Versus love for an in-group, love for one another versus like mutual hatred. And I don't need to lecture you about which one's better and which one's worse. It's quite apparent, and you can see a lot of the ones who are shared over mutual hatred for the outgroup. You can see them everywhere, and fundamentally, it's interesting because these people feed off their enemies. I've used the analogy before of like Andrew Tate feeds off the hardcore feminist, and the hardcore feminist feeds off Andrew Tate. They kind of need each other to sustain each other, in a sense, which is quite interesting. Actually, it's almost a little bit incestuous, but. Enough of my pseudo-psychological analysis. The main point is, if you're building a community or engaging a community, make sure it's out of love for in-group. It's not out of mutual hatred. That's a very important thing. And also that it's not too dogmatic or strict or like too restricted or anything. Because fundamentally, like I said, you don't want to be too dogmatic. We live in a mirror world that will seek to prove your biases towards you at every opportunity. So, don't just think, oh, this one ideology is the complete truth, because it's obviously fucking not, right? Even as a Christian, I say, if I was to speak to like a Muslim man, right, I'd listen to him. I wouldn't say, no, Bible says this, I say, well, yeah, just say what you have to say, and I weigh up what you have to say, because fundamentally, I'm not as arrogant as to think that just because I belong to a religion that I'm right about everything. That is a fool's errand. Fundamentally, right, veto and pendere vero. And that means to devote one's life to the truth. Vitam and pendere vero, I meant. Latin's getting a bit shaky. But yeah, so to devote one's life to the truth. The only loyalty I have is to the truth, not to any ideology. And I also think you should follow suit, in my opinion. So yeah, fundamentally, and also don't play the competitions which other people want you to play. Don't compete each other about who can go to the most exotic location or who has the best body. Just be a bit authentic, you know. The emanations that come from your psyche, put them into a post, you know. Build a community based on your autistic interest. Don't make it about something else or something you want to prove to someone else or about being cool or being seen a certain way. Just be you, because that is how you truly beat the, you know, billions in competition, by being authentic, because that's a game no one can beat you at, being yourself. So gentlemen, that's what it comes down to. In a very nebulous world, very confusing, very chaotic, very divided, very argumentative, will you dig the trenches ever deeper, or will you build a bridge across it instead? Anyways, gentlemen, as always, I like to say a little prayer towards the end of the podcast. It's been a pleasure. I've had some good fun today. And now, as always, if you can just sit down and kind of like, you know, pray with me, that would be great. If not, just kind of feel in your heart what I'm saying, kind of meditate on the words I'm saying. So, in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Dear Lord, bless us, bless the viewers watching us, my family and their family as well. May the world be united and see past our differences, and see past our tribalistic tendencies and philosophies and ideologies and races and gender and sexes or political views or whatever it is. May we see past that and see the divine spark in each of our eyes, and may we act upon that. Help us love one another, help us see the God in one another, and help us be kind, compassionate and loving. Help us be understanding, help us turn the other cheek, and help us, in the face of hate, show love. Help us build bridges in a world of trenches, and help us build little pockets of the divine in this satanic world, little candles in the dark night, and help us express ourselves authentically and show no fear of judgment. Help us be the best men we can possibly be in service of this world, and live like you, Christ. Archangel Michael, give us strength. Mother Mary, nourish our anima. And God, give us wisdom and love and strength. Thank you very much. God bless the round table, and God bless the knights around it. Amen. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Thank you very much, gentlemen. God bless, and keep trying.